The Woman King, Viola Davis's newest film, where she just gets to be a fucking badass the whole time. And man, this was a lot of fun to watch. I had three pieces that I really enjoyed. I just kind of want to list them out off the top. Maybe we can use them as like a jumping point. One, Viola Davis, who does dramatic roles so well, just going into action and fucking crushing it. Maybe the most predictable acting turn ever, but yeah, she's just great at everything she does. John Boyega getting like a great role.
Yeah,
We've
he
seen
was
him have a
good.
few.
It's
Yeah,
the
he was
king.
really good. And then Lashana Lynch,
Oh my god.
post Star Wars, just fucking crushing it. I was just like, man, this is great. And then I mean, this I guess is my fourth point, but Thuso Mebdu, the child Nawi, is just really great as well. I think we're going to be seeing her a lot more moving forward.
Yeah,
But
from the Underground Railroad, of course.
yeah, really enjoyed this. What was your general take on the Woman King?
Yeah, I think the Woman King is just epic. It's really great. It's a really fun. It's a traditional, conventional like swords and sandals action movie, right? It's very reminiscent of all kinds of classics like Braveheart and Gladiator and war movies, stuff of that ilk. It's just it's a tried and true uh, film format for a reason. And in this case, you have all this great talent surrounding it. You have, I think, a really engaging yet coherent story, which is just this kingdom fighting for their survival as everything around them is changing. Set in West Africa during the early 1800s, slave trade well underway at this point. And yeah, I thought it was just really great. And then really, I think it really kicks into high gear once once the Agoji are training their new crop, right? They're their new recruits, and that's where Thuso Madubu comes in here, and Lashana Lynch kind of takes her under her wing, gets to be that familiar figure, right, of like the elder kind of training you and showing you the ropes. But man, it's like the Lashana Lynch performance is honestly like really great. I think really carries so many of the scenes because there's just so much charisma and fun energy there. But I think it's just The Woman King, just really solid film. Like it just goes through all these beats we know, but it just does it at such a high level, and you have so much talent involved that it's a really fun time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more that the movie really takes off once you get the trainings going. I think that's great. I love the scene where they're doing like the competition. Kind of reminds you of like Wonder Woman when they do like the Amazonian warrior like
Oh yeah,
competition
sure.
a bit, and I think that is like a clear standout as well. And I was really expecting this like huge battle to kind of be like the ending, because that's kind of how these things go, right? There's usually like one like final epic battle, and maybe like people die, but like having it be this smaller like rescue mission that kind of puts Viola Davis in this like position of, do I disobey my king and go and save my team, or do I stick by the king and know that some of my team's going to be sacrificed? I think it was really smart because I added this level of like this character having to kind of change or make this decision that it was difficult, while also like putting like these other characters apart to like let them grow and have their own moments. And I don't know if there's going to be a Woman King sequel. I definitely could see one happening. And the way that they kind of leave things off, I think there's a lot of potential for it. But yeah, I just was really impressed, and the action scenes are just dynamite. Like they're
Hmm.
really great, and seeing like the different like battle styles. We always kind of talk about that, like things in like John Wick or other action movies. It's easy to be like, oh well, he fought that way, and this guy's this type of fighter, but you really see like how the women in this like were using their size and their agility against these like more like lumbering sizable enemies, and I think it was
Hmm.
all just really cool to see how they kind of worked that out.
Right. How did you feel about this plot once the Europeans come into it? Because early on, I was I was going in, and I'm like, I wonder if this is going to be solely African based. And then you see the time, and I'm like, okay, well, slave trade's happening. So odds are we're going to see, and they don't run away from the presence of the slave trade right away. But then, like, I think the movie does a clear shift when we get it past the hardcore training stuff and into the fact that the traders are around and kind of basically allying with like a neighboring uh, African state, and shit's about to go down basically. And that I really like that conflict they set up, where it's like the kingdom of Dahomey under John Boyega's kingdom wants to move away from selling slaves themselves, which is what they used to do in the past, and that's a big part of what Viola Davis's Nanisco wants to happen. And then uh, Nawi meets Malik, right, the biracial guy who came over with the traders, and like you said, the final battle, the rescue mission, we're taking place at like the port where all this, the slave trade's happening, right? So
Yeah.
it's like we kind of like leave the bush behind, and there's a lot more white people around. How did you feel about like that kind of shift of the plot, where it gets kind of much more high level, right? And it's
Mhm.
almost more about like this kingdom's fighting for its true independence, and
Right.
also like more like ethical, like finding its heart kind of thing.
I actually really liked that choice only because I think if you're going to put, you know, the setting in West Africa at this point in history, it's kind of hard to not have that be at least somewhat present. And I think you kind of have inklings of that when some of these tribes have guns, right? And that kind of is what makes fighting them more challenging. So you kind of know that there's European and potentially Western world influence already kind of somewhere within this world. So then having it kind of show up and add this extra layer of, danger, this extra layer of like, what is the story really about? I think I thought added to the movie for me, but I could also see how, if they had chosen not to introduce that and kind of just made it this like African story that's not touched by the European slave trade, I think it could have still worked and been meaningful. It just wouldn't have had this extra layer of history. I think. What was your opinion on it?
Yeah, I liked where it went, but like when it started happening, and like now he's talking to Malik, I'm like, where's this gonna go?
Mhm.
But yeah, I like where it goes. There's been a lot of talk online this weekend about watching a movie about like the kingdom of Dahomey, right? And like there's a whole thing about like the historical accuracy, and not just from like the usual like bad actors, but from actual people that are like, no, like this is a movie about people that were slavers, and shouldn't support that kind of thing. And I think, on one hand, it's like, well, most historical epics, almost all of them, will take liberties with the
Yes.
truth. That's just welcome to Hollywood. It's not presented in a
Yeah,
documentary. And I think, if anything, this is clearly going to promote people to learn about this history, right?
I
So
agree.
it's a net positive to me. Like, it's not like we're laundering the reputation of anybody because this is hundreds of years ago. Like, we're not doing any like service to bad actors or anything, right, of the past. But also, like, I think the movie, like, it like puts it front and center. It's like, yeah, we used to sell slaves. Maybe they weren't our own people. We were still selling other Africans, and we want to
Mhm.
stop that. And no matter how accurate that was, I think ultimately, like, it's presenting that like in the open again. Like the slave trade's a huge aspect of the second half of the film, and I think some people obviously like the less credible types are just going to look at it like, oh, female warriors, blah blah blah. But it's like, no, I think they communicate all that very well, and the movie kind of, I think, rises even above and beyond that. And it's like a really empowering thing, but it's also just a bit more macro, right? When like how it's interfacing with the slave trade. So I actually really came around on all of that by the end. And again, it doesn't hurt when you have like Viola Davis and Lashana Lynch and John Boyega, oh, like really killing it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I left wanting to learn more about it, and I hope other people do as well. But kind of like most of these historical um or movies based on historical events or people, you can kind of take it at face value if you want, just kind of enjoy this as a cool action movie, or you can really dive into the history. I think it works on multiple levels. Um, yeah, I mean it's kind of funny because like I don't really have a lot more to say about this, only because I just thought it was like
Yeah,
really great and really fun. Like
totally.
a surprise for me, but like I am really glad that I saw watched this movie.
Yeah, and well, and Gina Prince-Bythewood really stepping up after The Old Guard, which was so on Netflix with Charlize. This is like
Yeah,
a movie that took some time to get made, but yeah, I mean, to just get like a true, honest to goodness, like historical epic in this way looks great, and it turns out it is great. And uh, yeah, I was very pleased with it, and I hope the box office continues. It had a pretty strong start, and
yeah,
the movie actually is like pretty modestly budgeted. It's like 50 million or something. I was trying to think about that. I was like, well, think about the sets. Like they built the port, and they
mhm,
built like the kingdom of Dahome's palace.
yeah,
Those are probably the only two permanent sets, right? And they must have done like some
yeah.
location stuff for the battles. So I guess you can kind of see how they maybe kept this one in check financially.
Yeah, save some money here and there. I thought it looked really great still,
Yeah,
for what they built. But yeah, pretty simple sets, like almost like the same setup too. You think about the kingdom, the temple, castle, and then the port. They're just kind of like these big encircled
yeah,
areas.
right. These courtyards, basically.
Yeah, so pretty simple, but it worked really effectively for sure.